Okay, I'm going to try to get to the point. This is a video about working capital. It's about what happens if you have some minimum cash balances, if you have some temporary working capital needs, if you have a working capital loan, or even just a kind of overdraft loan. Okay, and just as a point of introduction, I'm trying to get to the point. I really, really am. I tend to throw away working capital in the project finance models and the corporate models. You just put a little simple working capital account in there, and you say, it's a percentage of revenues, percentage of inventories, percentage of cost of goods sold, blah, 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 blah. And I said, it's not a big deal. Kind of just don't worry too much about it. And then I'm wrong. It's not got really fancy circular reference issues. It's not got some other fancy issues. But doing it correctly, and I'm not saying, please, I'm not saying I'm doing it correctly. A theme I'm making, and if I'm not getting to the point, I'm sorry about this. A theme about modeling is that there's no stupid bureaucratic rule. A foolish consistency is for petty bureaucrats and know nothings. You want to be creative, and you just want to work through things. But there are a couple of things hopefully I can guide you along in. So what I did is I said, okay, let's make a little example with some different growth rates. Maybe I should have this be minus 5%. Okay, we put some different growth rates. We put some annual revenues in, some variable costs, some fixed costs, and then we put a little monthly pattern in. This is insert a spark line. Okay, and the big deal is that the revenues are collected at the end of the year and not the beginning of the year. Now, what prompted me to make this a video is a friend of mine, and I before other times I've mentioned people's names, and they say, take the video off. Or I put different colors in, and they say, make it. Oh, you will violent. Okay, I'm not telling his name. He did say he might buy me a beer one day, though. So I don't know if he'd really care. Okay, so I'm going to then put some. We're going to make a working. We're going to make the receivables 2 months. Now, if you had 2.2 months or 2.3 months, it would get a little more complicated. With the integer on the number of months, you can just go back 2 months and say we received these revenues 2 months ago and we can collect them now. If somebody's obsessive about 2.5 months, then you'd have to go and put that 0.5 in, and it would be painful. So I did simplify that a little bit. Maybe you'd make your model on a day-by-day basis or something crazy like that. Month by month, I think, is bad enough. And then we put a working capital commitment in. Okay, and then I say, okay, well, here's the point. The first thing to do is to not start worrying about it. Okay, and why do I have this over here? The first thing to do is to work through your revenues and expenses. And we're going to use a lookup function for that. And hopefully, I have so many of these generic macros things now. It's really a kind of disaster. Okay, so we can just, if I press, I told you I was going to do this, and this is a digression, I know. But if you press alternate H, turn storage on, you can go kind of to the source data. And then you can say, here's our revenues. This is an input. We can go backwards. We can just step down through the different accounts. We can... what happened here? It's changed the appearance on me. Oh, shit. Okay, well, I'm going to pretend I didn't see that. Okay, and obviously I told you I was going to work on that over and over and over and over again, so I'm just doing what I promised, nothing more. So we work through our revenues and expenses, and what I'm going to have you do You're not going to have to do it at all. I'm going to make an exercise. And we're just going to work through the same sort of things. So the first part is don't do anything special. And then when you set up your accounts receivable and accounts payable, if the percentage of the accounts payable or accounts receivable, inventories or taxes payable or blah, 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 if that is different, if that percent is different than the percent for the, come on, get some words out. If it's less than 1 month, okay, you can say, well, at the end of the day, here are our revenues, and we've only 80% of them are outstanding, so we have less than 30 days or whatever per month, and then you can say, well, that you get the closing balances as 20% or whatever, however many they're outstanding. But if it's more than a month or if it's more than the time period, then we'll have to use the offset function. Okay, what happens here? Okay, kind of puts a little thing here. I might have to work on that a little bit, and then I'll go to that one. And then I don't know what happened here. Oh, okay. What happened? Okay, I have no idea what just happened, but okay. I should have an idea. That was kind of bad. So we got our balances of accounts receivable and accounts payable, and that was point number kind of 3 here, okay? And then once you do this, now in a recent case I had to just do this for working capital. I took this case to a little more extreme. I said, okay, let's work through month by month by month, and let's see how much cash flow. We generated no cash flow here because we started our kind of operation, and then I said we have to wait 2 months, so we don't get any, and then we have to wait 3 months to pay. And then in the first period, we get 2.04 of revenues, and we collect it over here, but we don't have to pay our expenses till the next month. So we actually have a tiny bit of positive cash flow here. And the question is, what do we do with the cash flow? Let's throw it into a cash account first, and then see what we need to do with it. And then after we throw it in a cash flow account, here's my point. Here is the point. Make a whole lot of, this is almost, in a way, this is something like just a cash flow waterfall. And really, you might make your kind of standard cash flow waterfall down here, but this, I meant up here where we have our revenues, expenses, EBITDA, and our net cash flow here. This is kind of like your standard cash flow waterfall. You put after that, you might put the debt repayments and all of this. But this in a cash balance account on a month-by-month basis, we can start really getting into a little bit more detail. And I think more and more I've seen models that will do this. So now, if we have positive cash flow, we say, okay, let's get a subtotal. And then let's see what our minimum cash balance is. And I said it has to be 3% of revenues. We could make it larger or smaller. It doesn't matter. And then if we don't have enough cash to meet this waterfall, I suppose you could have to go borrow it or something like this to meet the minimum. But so there's a little bit of a if statement here, but not bad. I'm not mad. I don't care if you're Annie. And then so you put a subtotal in, and then you see, do we have, here is the minimum cash we need, here's the amount we have. We have some extra cash. What should we do with that cash? Well, if we have negative cash flow, we might want to take this negative cash flow up here and take it out of the account. And what you'll do you'll go crazy with min-max, min-max, min-max. I think I already have it up here. We're only going to put the stick the positive cash in our account. It's not the only way to do it. The idea is to use a lot of min-max, 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 and to use a lot of subtotals so you can compute something on the min-max. And then after that, we can say, what happens so now we had some negative cash flow, we take it out of cash, and then we connect the two accounts. And the first way to connect it is to say, well, I'm going to see how much negative cash flow I have, and then I'm going to use the maximum statement, and I'm going to adjust that negative cash flow for how much we can take out of the account. Okay, so if I have some left over, and you notice I put a maximum of 0, it should be telling you over and over and over and over again till it gets stuck in your brain like crazy that you use the max to test whether you're doing something with a positive or negative. That's all, nothing else, or maybe a little bit of a maximum account. But the minimum account is the one you really use. And look at me. The minimum account I used here, that's how much we can put in. Now, what happened here, so we have some negative cash flow, and we're building up our loan balance. And we build it up, and then we get to the end of the period, and what happens here is we start to generate a little bit of positive cash in these next periods. Now, when we generate this positive cash, we're going to use it to pay down the debt facility. And we're going to use it, so part of the repayment will come from this kind of cash balance. I am absolutely not saying this is the right thing to do, but we see how much is left over, and we just use a min and a max, and we can probably solve this 1,000 different ways. But we take this and we don't, if you don't have anything left to pay off, which happened here, because we have here we only pay off the opening balance. Can you see this 12.71? I hope you're seeing you're going to use min max, min max, min max like crazy. And then once we have this, now you could, of course, use cash to pay off the loans, and that'll get complicated, especially if the loans come due and you have to look forward, and I have to do all of this, and that's where things do get a little bit hairy. But you can kind of do this all with min, max, min, max, min, max. So before we start to work through all of this, just use. I'm going to use the lookup. I'm going to use the offset function. And anybody who starts telling me, "Oh God, do I get pissed off about this?" If anybody tells me, "Oh, offset is a volatile function," well, damn you, all of functions you're going to use. When you press F9, Excel doesn't say, "Should I recompute this sum function or not?" Or maybe if you have 3 sheets open, maybe you say it's volatile and it computes all sheets. But if you've tried to use the volatile function, it doesn't really work anyway very well. It doesn't make any difference. Offset is no different than anything else. And I've proven that. It doesn't slow you down. Don't believe these stupid old wives' tales, please. Let me calm down. I need to get a heart attack. Stop all of this. Okay, and then so we started with the cash balance, and then see what's going on, and then we use the minimum and maximum accounts like crazy. So let's go and start doing some of this. Okay, another thing that, of course, I'm going to go crazy about. If we put the annual revenues, no if statement, we'll put equal lookup. Okay. So we put our lookup function in, and we say, okay, I'm just going to take the year. And I forgot to tell you that I set this timeline up with months and years, and this is the year and the month. And then, of course, you just click on this one, and then we put a growth rate in our revenues, okay? And then you press Shift-Control-R. And sometimes you'd have to press Shift-Control-R, and if you want to do it your fancy way, Do it your fancy way. Who cares? And I don't know when it got to be manual. Now for the monthly factor, put equal lookup again. And this time, click on the month, the one single month, and then you click on the whole row 19, and then you click on the seasonal factor for revenues. Shift Control R if you want to do your back, and you're so fast at it, good for you. I'm just going to stop commenting on all of that. Who cares if you use all these tools I've wasted my life on? If you put equal lookup, I'm obviously having a bad period. Then now we're going to put a lookup, and we're going to again use our year, but this time I'm going to take the fixed expenses. Okay, and to make it a little interesting, then finally I'm going to use a lookup on the month again. And I said, okay, well, this time we're just going to have a boring old fixed. So we got to kind of pay our expenses over time. And I just wanted to emphasize that if you're a banker, you hate fixed expenses. If you're maybe the investor, you like it. Fixed expenses create leverage. They create fixed stuff that has to be paid. You know, they're like employees or something. Oh, you hate them. Okay, and then we put our variable costs. And where did I do the variable cost? Where did I do? That's ridiculous use. It's up here. We take this one and we click on our year. And lower disk space. What the hell is that? And then we put them all on that. And then we take our variable costs. And I'm going to say, well, our variable costs are just 30% of our revenues. Okay, so I tried to set this up all pretty easily for you. And then we take our revenues minus our fixed expense minus our variable expense. And then we get our EBITDA. If I did something wrong here, what did I? And of course, what an idiot I am. Okay, I was wondering what was going on. So what we have is negative EBITDA. And what happened here? I didn't copy it all, so you might be yelling, see, I told you your method sucks. And then so what should happen is we get some negative cash flows, and then where's our positive cash flow? Where's our positive income? I don't even have any positive income here. Okay, I'm leaving it just for now. And then now I'm going to make a little balance. I'm going to say for the accounts receivable, if we had a balance sheet, I'm going to say that our we didn't have an opening opening accounts receivable balance. Yes. What now? Shit. I'm going to turn the video off.
Something fucking happened with the internet.
Oh, great.
What'd you do?
Okay, I had to take a little break. And again, I'm emphasizing when I do this, please, there is not one single rule. This is to illustrate some ideas about working capital, some ideas about working capital facilities, ideas about minimum cash balances, and please, it's absolutely crazy to think there's one rule. So I'm just putting an opening and closing balance. Now, when you use the offset function. I always start with my little counter, and I know some people say, no, you can't put a fixed number there, so Hetty does something else. But if this number is greater than this number, then we're going to use the offset function. And then we're just going to go up to the revenues we collect, keep it on the same row, and put a minus and go backwards 2 periods and press the F4 to collect them. And then you'll get a false, so just multiply that by the number 1. So I hope you see there's just a little bit of Excel. So we have the opening balance whoops. We have the opening balance when we put some money into our account, it adds it, and then we subtract the amount left over. Now, I'm using a positive number convention, which seems to be less and less used. This worked with the less than or equal to, less than, greater than, not greater than or equal to. And, oh God, they're out there doing it. And I keep things positive. And it doesn't matter on a lot of these things, but when you get to the minimum and maximum, now that 3, remember, that's from the input just above. So then we get our total variable expense plus our total fixed expense. These are all the stuff, and we're going to wait 3 months to pay our people, just as an example. So again, we put our if statement, and if it's greater than this one, press F4 and then use the offset function and go up to the balance and put a comma 0 to keep it on the same row, and then put a minus on that. Close it and multiply it by 1. Okay? And oops, where did I see? You have to make sure and multiply it by 1 at the end. B. And then so we accrue our expenses, but we don't pay them, so we get a balance. Okay, and just like any other working capital, now we can sum up all of our accounts receivable and our inventories and prepaid and everything else, subtract all our payables and anything else related to that, and we have negative working capital, which is really good news. And does this negative working capital just kind of always stays there, doesn't it? Did I do something wrong? We get up here and we have a really big accounts receivable balance. Okay, I'm going to leave it right now. Oh, and then we put our change in working capital. The fact that we didn't have a difference. So what that means is relative to our EBITDA, which was negative, we don't actually spend any money. And we have these big negative working capitals, and then it's really big positive. And that's what I hope to kind of demonstrate with you. And then I'm going to plop in our EBITDA, which is the revenues minus expenses, and compute our net cash flow, which is our EBITDA minus the minus change in working capital. So we have 0 cash in the very first period. And then I said, okay, well, let's use a lookup. And again, look up on the year and find I put some minimum somewhere, didn't I? So we again get the whole year, and then we put the minimum working capital. And then I said, okay, well, let's just have some kind of arbitrary assumption that minimum working capital is a percentage of the revenues. And so we have to keep, I said, well, let's make it not seasonal. Let's make it based on the annual revenues. So we don't have to, vary it. We're gonna keep that amount in our bank account all the time. I wish I could keep anything in my bank account. Then let's go to the cash balance. Now again, if I've ever done it like this, I doubt it. If it's a corporate model, you'll have something at the end. There'll be some dividend repayments and debt repayments. It's almost as if I'm making a little bit of a cash flow waterfall at the end. But the points I want to really emphasize are what we do with the minimum balance. So what we're going to do is add, and I should say, well, let's add the positive cash flow. Okay, so we're going to, if we have some positive cash flow, we're going to put a maximum, and oops, and go up to our cash flow and put a comma 0, and that will only add it when it's positive. Okay, and then we'll see, okay, we take this opening balance and we add our cash flow into that, and do we have enough to cover our required minimum balance? And if we don't have enough, we're going to have to do some, well, we're going to have to get it. I didn't put that in. But if we have extra amount, we can take this minus this, and we can do something with that cash. We can potentially use that cash to repay the working capital facility or our overdraft facility or whatever. Now, if we have some negative cash up here, so if we have some negative cash, what I do is I don't, some people put minus min and I put max and a minus number. I've just done that for so many years I'll never be able to change it. And we put comma 0. So that's the negative amount that we can take out of the count, but we've got to wait. And you can start doing this right here. We don't need to take all of it out. We're going to just take the amount relative to the minimum, the amount we can take out. Can you see the importance of the subtotal? Get that out. Now, if we've taken some out, and we might be able to then use some of that cash. We put that cash up here. We put the positive cash up here. We've taken, well, if it was negative, we've taken some out, and then we put we'll take the subtotal minus this. That's the amount we can take out. But, and this is where it's connected, so this is another point, we take the minimum of this or the opening balance of our loan facility. Okay, so we only pay it if we have some loan outstanding. If we don't have any loan outstanding, we don't have to pay it. And actually, if we were really careful, we take the minimum of the if we have some negative cash flows, we'll use that. I hope I got that right. I might have got that last thing a little bit wrong. I mean, I almost have to test it. Then we take this minus that, and that's how much cash we have left over. Now, it's possible you have some extra cash and you want to pay dividends out of that and tax, whatever. Taxes should be above. Maybe all this stuff should be above. And then our closing balance, well, we can take our opening balance plus the amount we put in minus the amount we take out for this minus the amount we take out for this. So you could do I guess I would be careful to show what's really a actual cash flow and what's just a balance. And then let's go to the well, let's put our change in our cash balance because that will reconcile the whole thing with this. Now, what's going to happen is we're going to make a loan facility. And if our loan facility exceeds the commitment, then we're going to have to get our money from somewhere else. So we're going to have to put a little bit of a limit on this. And what I did, so we'll use the lookup again. And again, you don't have to do it like this, but I want you to know one thing. I really want you to know one thing, that this does not slow your models down if you do it like that. Okay, and then let's make the opening balance as always the prior closing balance, and I just assumed we had some kind of balance sheet. Now, if you have some negative cash flow, so if it's negative, the first thing I would do is just put a minus and go up to the cash flow again. Because we did something with a positive cash flow, and we did something with a negative cash flow, but not all of the negative cash flow. We'd have to put another minus on the amount that we're using to pay people. Okay, and just a minute. And there's something wrong here, of course. This should have been oh, no, that's the amount of extra cash we have, excuse me. Okay, so we can use that cash to pay off the minimum, but we take this minus that. See, this one should have been on the opening balance. I was afraid of that. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're going to pay off our opening balance, and then now this is where I have a maximum, I hope, of a minus on the cash flow minus the amount we've already taken out and used up here. So we don't have to, if we've got cash from our cash balance, we don't have to use it again. And then the closing balance of the loan would be the amount we start with plus the amount we have from the negative cash flow, which I have wrong, minus this. So I have to pause this for a minute. And actually, I'm a little bit nervous because I'm just about to get on a call. Okay, this should have not been this maximum minus business. This is where we needed the maximum. Now, if this all works, I'm going to press Shift Control R. And let's start working through it one more time. So we get some extra cash flow here. This is the minimum balance. We've got above the minimum balance, and this is wrong because this opening balance, this should have been minus here. Excuse me. Okay, so we go to the first few periods, and then we have a big negative cash flow because we've got to pay all those operating costs. We start with some cash with this negative cash flow, and I've got another mistake because when this cash was negative, and I don't know what I did here. This should have been the maximum of this one, or 0. And I've got to pause one more time, and excuse me for doing that. Okay, and I'm hoping seeing the connection. I made another mistake. I just didn't add this amount. So out of this 142 negative cash flow, 114 comes because we're exceeding the maximum. Again, a max min, max min, max min. And this says if it's negative cash flow, take away this amount and put the rest into into your loan account. Okay, and so your loan is building now, building and building and building, and finally we need to get some positive cash flows. So I'm going to have to pause the video one more time, and get it to positive cash flows. Okay, so I had made a mistake and I had multiplied the variable costs here, I think, by the variable expense, and I had multiplied them by the total annual revenues rather than the monthly revenues, and that's why we had some negative cash flow. So let's see what we have. And again, when we have the positive cash flow, it plops up to the cash. Negative cash flow, we're seeing if we're going to take some money out of the cash, and we're taking just enough money to keep our minimum cash balance okay. And then if we have some leftover negative cash flow, which is the total the negative cash flow minus the amount that you've already used in the cash account, you've got to go and borrow that. And the next month we have to borrow it all. Next month we have to borrow it all until we start getting some positive cash flow. And once we get positive cash flow, we plop it into our cash account. We see if it's above the minimum. If it's above the minimum, we can use it to pay down this cash. Good. Debt. And then in the next month, we got a bigger positive cash flow. Here we go. Put it here. We compare it to the minimum, and we use that cash flow just to pay off the a loan. I bet you I could have done this easier. It seems like we didn't have to put it directly here and all that, but again, I'm trying to emphasize the idea. This is one a way to do it, and then we keep building up the cash, and then the cycle repeats, and the cycle repeats, and the cycle repeats. Now, there's one other thing that in theory we should do, and that is that right now I have a commitment on our working capital facility, and right now the commitment is almost too big, because we have to pay a commitment fee on this. So we can take this commitment minus the amount we have at the beginning, and we have to pay a fee on that. And our commitment fee is a lookup as usual. And I think I put it by year. So we go up to the year. We take the, where's the commitment fee? We take this, wrong. We take this year, and then we take the commitment fee. And then I'm going to divide it by 12. Okay, you can yell at me and do all that. Get your auditors cranked up and all that. And then we'll pay the commitment fee. It's really kind of an opening balance idea. And we're paying all this money for stuff we never really have to use. And then we can put the same thing, of course, for the interest rate, look up and get our year and put this in and put this in. I might sound like such an asshole here. I promise I'm not that. Please. And maybe I should do one of these things that everybody else does, where I say, put your picture up there and all that. If we take our EBITDA that we had, that was non-cash. Where's our EBITDA? Okay, and we take away the working capital change. Then we get and then we add back the change in the loan, the revolver or the working capital loan, whatever you want to call that. Okay, so we're going to take that amount, and we're going to get some net cash flow. This minus this, so we're zero, and then this is a plus. We get that. And then we can compare that to the change in the cash balance up here, and everything should be just right. And we kind of have a little check. We can even put a little test here. This equals this. Okay. And we might have to round it off, and we didn't even have to round it off, and we put a little and statement up here. Okay, and then oh shit. Where did it, Where did it give me that? Oh, we had a little bit of a false here. No, that's not a false. These are equal. So as usual, we have to put round. I don't know why I even tried it without that. And these days, I'm so much lazier. I don't want to round to the nearest point, blah, blah, blah. Just put a 0 equals 0. Good enough, isn't it? Okay, and that's our test. Okay, and then let's now just work on this commitment. So in this commitment, let's put a commitment instead of 500. Let's put 80. Okay, and if we have a commitment of 80, what that means is over here we can't borrow all this money. And that's why this subtotal seemed to be meaningless here. But if we put remaining amount on commitment to borrow or something. I don't know if that's the right one. Control D to get that. Shit. That's control. And then I didn't have. I'm not supposed to swear. I bet he doesn't swear. Okay. Cancel. Sorry about that if you're offended by that. Okay. Shift Control F. That didn't really work. And then I better press Shift Control E. Can't even remember anything anymore. So the amount we have to borrow, we can take this amount minus the opening balance, but also minus anything we got from our cash account. Okay, so we would be opening balance minus that plus any money we got back from the cash account. I had it wrong. Okay, and what happens is this is a negative. Okay, so we can't, and that means that the maximum we could have borrowed in just a minute. We were allowed to borrow this. And when I say maximum, we're going to use the minimum function. And okay, we could borrow this. No, we couldn't borrow it here. So we have to put another minimum function here. And after we put this minimum function here, we can just go up to it's like a subtotal account again. And then we never exceed our amount, but I'd almost kind of want to leave this because we can see, okay, when we have our net cash flow, is it still working here? No, good, it's not working here because we couldn't borrow everything from our loan, and then we'd have to put some other kind of funding in to get the difference. We'd have to default on some kind of loan. We'd have to get some kind of long-term borrowing, something else. Okay, or the easiest thing is just to increase our commitment. Okay, and I think that's enough. I'm going to do one more thing. Sorry, Control Alt C. Press the reset button. Okay, and then you see, okay, we've got about 6 lines at the top. This is in column B. Do I have any sums here? Let me put a couple of sum. Let me put a sum here. Let's get all the positive cash flow, and maybe on EBITDA, we should have put a sum on this one to see over time, did we even have, ooh, that's really bad. We had a negative EBITDA. That's why we had to borrow some money. Okay, not so good. Put a sum here. It doesn't matter. Okay, I had to make this so the thing would work. And then we press Control Alt C, and it says the sum column is in F. And it is in F. Pretty soon. Yeah, it's artificial. No, it isn't. Okay, it's just like a couple of if statements. This is line 6. We're going to 800, which is a lot. Probably too much. It's going to take too long. Let's go to 300. And if we get things from another sheet, which we don't, we'll color it and blah, blah, blah. Okay, there. Okay, and one more thing. I just have to do it. Sorry about that. We want to do a little bit of our analysis when we did some of these if statements. And if you press alternate U, it says, okay, that's the required cash balance. The required cash balance is this times the annual revenues. The annual revenues are from a lookup. The lookup comes from the annual revenues over here, which grow. That wasn't that bad. Let's do that one more time. Alternate U. Download the generic macros and try to write your own macros. Try to fix it yourself. You're not going to give it to me if you fix it. Oh, why in the hell? I told you why can't I get it like that? Huh. I don't know why. Oh, something happened with this thing. Shit. Okay. Okay. So this is the thing you download. You go to my website, get rid of the Zoom call, and you put, okay, and you just get that generic macros from right here, this one, okay? You just download it, and you can look. It's all open source. You can see exactly how all that stuff works, and you don't care about my little class. I wish you would. I wish somebody would take my classes, but whatever. I'm having a bad time. Okay, enough. Now I gotta turn this off somehow.